out. So Joan, I'm gonna start with you. So we're gonna make this very conversational. The really amazing thing about having a small group is that you guys can ask lots of questions. And so don't leave yet, but the expectation, or I wanna say expectation, the assumption will be that you'll ask lots of questions too. So this is a great way. So I'm gonna start out with you. And so tell them who you are and what you do for business. Just give them that backdrop.
Perfect. So I'm Jennifer Bonacorsi, and I'm the president and founder of JBloom. If you have been on Highway 94, we have the old Gold's Gym on Highway 94. Our headquarters is now located there, so it's been fabulous. We've been there a little bit over a year, but I started JBloom in 2013. I had a different company from 2004 until 2013 called You Design Jewelry, which that was very crafty. And we weren't growing as fast as we would like because of the craftiness to it. So the minute I would tell people that I would teach them how to make the jewelry, they were out. So in 2013, I relaunched the company to JBloom, and no longer do all of our designers have to make the jewelry when they go out. We are a direct sales jewelry company. And so we have ladies all across the country selling our jewelry, and we're the headquarters. So whenever they place their orders online, it comes to us, we ship it out to them. So we have ladies that are in, I believe it's 46 states out there doing the home parties. So as you know, though, in 2020, when COVID happened, we were an in-home party company. So that we had to pivot very, very fast and become an online company. And honestly, we weren't very good at online at that time, but it made us be very good. And so now, fast forward a little bit, we now have two ways to do business. We can do it online and we can do it in the home. And it's been great because just like what you said, we have an online option today. We do that now as well. And so we're able to reach way more people. So that's a little bit of what that is.
Before we move on, so what's fun is so Jennifer and our kids who are like adults now went to school together, and so I got to meet Jennifer when we had these when we had these events where you would design your own, and I can tell you that their folks do a 10,000% better job than anything I could put together. So, and then give them a little bit of your background.
Good afternoon. So my name is Joan Daleo. And I am the fourth person in my family, the fourth generation of my family to work in the fresh produce industry. It's not a continuous company, so my mom and dad actually founded the company that I now run. We'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. So, I didn't start out thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur in any way. I mean, I went off to school. I was raised here I grew up here in North County, went to school at Pattonville. Later, I graduated from Pattonville and I went on to Portland, Oregon, where I studied economics and history at Reed College, and then studied accounting and finance at Portland State University, where I was working for a big diversified utility company named Pacificorp. And I was on my way to, I don't know, something. The tug of Missouri and the tug of my family brought me back here. But more importantly, I realized in that kind of corporate setting, my goal in life was to change and affect people's lives. And I couldn't do it very well there, so I quit. And I came back to St. Louis and I got my MBA at Washington University. I was working for my dad, and I still thought I was going to leave, and that was 30 years ago. So a lot happened, and I could share those stories with you and hope to share some of those with you today. But we now operate out of a state-of-the-art facility down the street. So we're at Elm and 370. We built a beautiful, beautiful facility in 2016. And anyone that is ever interested in coming by, we'd love to host students for a day. We have different people. I mean, some very college students have come by from time to time to get somebody. It's a really interesting business. It's a fascinating business, and it's still why I'm there 30 years later.
So explain. So for someone like me who knows nothing about your business and how it works? Like explain what your model looks like. What is that delivery aspect?
So we're part of the entire fresh supply chain. And we are a B2B company. So we really, during COVID, we did some B2C. Obviously, it was a great opportunity for folks who could come and have completely contactless. You could ride in the parking lot, we filled drawers, put your trunk and you're away. But we do not do that today. It's disruptive to our business, and we don't have pack sizes that are standard. You know, people accepted pack sizes that weren't standard during COVID, but typically you don't want a 5-pound block of sliced American cheese. So what we do is we sell to say university cafeterias, similar to the food service accounts you have here, hospitals, independent restaurants, very familiar names of regional and national restaurants that you would all know. And we are the supplier of the things that fall on the fresh produce side or other fresh foods. We buy direct, so we're buying from California, from Florida, from Mexico, from Texas, from all the major growing areas, handling that supply chain into our warehouse, utilizing all of food safety standards. We are SQF level 2 certified. It's a very, very high European standard. So our job is to get the fresh products in, to handle them very safely, and to get them to that location where they're going to be consumed and not do anything to them. And hopefully have them in the very freshest possible state to be served to literally thousands of people across the eastern part of the state of Missouri. So we cover about 170-mile territory around St. Louis. So we go into Illinois, kind of over to like Fayette, down to Rolla, Salem, Cape Girardeau, Penn-Scott County, down in that area, Scott County. So we go all the way down almost to the dead of the hill.
So similarly, Jen, kind of explain to them how JBloom works.
Sure. So we're the headquarters here in St. Louis, but we have, with the ladies that are out selling our jewelry, so we have all of the supplies and everything in St. Louis. And when the ladies go out and do their home boutiques or online boutiques, their orders come to us, and then we ship it out back to the customer or to the designer, however they ask for it to be shipped to them. And so we are known for our personalization. So we do personalized jewelry as our main thing, and then we tie it together with fashion pieces as well. So our personalization is what really sets us apart. We can take handwriting or a picture of something and put it on a piece of jewelry and make it very, very personalized for the customer.
So how, because I know you are, so Jen is an amazing, I know a lot of women who sell for Jen. She does an amazing job of creating incredible culture. I'm sure you do as well. So how does an online purchase work like this? Is there going to be someone getting credit for that, or is that not covered? Like if I went online, is that just in a different category of sales, or?
You mean as the
like
designer?
Rep getting?
Yes. So at every order that comes through online, if it's tied to one of we call our reps designers. So every time an order is placed under a designer, she gets a commission off of that. So that's how we work on a commission basis too for our designers. So we're very much like a Mary Kay, Pampered Chef, us Born Books, all of those types of things. And I was not an entrepreneur as well in the beginning. I was an early childhood special education teacher. And so when I started to have my own family, I thought, I just want to jewelry for myself. And I had 3 young daughters at the time. I now have 4. But my husband traveled a lot, and I thought I just wanted a hobby for myself. But what ended up happening is people were buying my jewelry off of me everywhere that I went. So my daughters were in dance class. I would go to the dance class with jewelry on. I would leave without jewelry on because people were buying it off of me. And my husband was the businessman. I was the creative person. So my husband watching this, he said, you should do home parties. Let people design their own, take it and finish it for them and get it back to the customer. And so I thought, well, that's not my hobby then anymore. But it turned out to be really, really great. And my neighbor had the very first home party for me, and it's been going for ever since. There was a lady at that very first party that said she wanted to do what I was doing. If I ever came up with a plan that had people under me, that she would love to be the first one. So I went home, we developed a plan that we took a Mary Kay handbook, a Pampered Chef handbook, and an Usborne Books handbook, and created our very own handbook, basically the way I wanted women to be able to earn an income on their sales, but also if they grew a team of ladies under them too, they would also earn a commission. So that's how it started. It was just my hobby, and it turned into what it is today. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that is amazing, and all of their jewelry is incredible. So, okay, so in your industry, what have been the unique growth, and no pun intended, growth or challenges? Because I'm thinking we are very becoming even more and more so health conscious. Folks are eliminating processed foods. So what are the unique demands in your industry?
Yeah, so I think that's very true.
Yeah.
So we are becoming more health conscious, and I think that I always say I'm very fond of saying, "Hey, we're Europe, but we're 200 years behind." And so they eat very locally. They eat much of what they grow. We're becoming more like that. I think as you see the weather patterns and the things that we had to deal with. I mean, today, for the first time in the history, I saw a case of lettuce. You never buy a case of lettuce, but a case of lettuce at an all-time high of $88. And that's created because of the extreme heat out in California over the summer, rain that hit Mexico, and then the hurricane that hit Florida. And so one of the trends is going to be more and more, and you'll continue to see this similar to other countries, is growth of hydroponics, things that are growing inside, where we control that. And so there's some giant companies today that are investing in that type of technology. But again, here in St. Louis, be very beneficial because we really only have 6 months of local. And there are things that don't particularly grow in our soil very well. And so being able to access more locally, a more diverse fresh food is going to be it's a big trend. It will continue. It's not going away.
What is it? Yeah, so for Missouri, what do we contribute to your industry? What are
I'd say our local is still probably only 5, maybe 10%.
Yeah.
If you include dairies and things like that, of course it's higher. Because we buy all of our dairy locally, from Prairie Farms. That's a local dairy. It is a big dairy, but a lot of that product comes locally. Granite City, and they have another one in Carbondale. They're kind of all over. But product-wise, we've seen a lot of farmers come and go. It's unfortunate. We started selling and really pushing local all the way back in the early 90s. We got a group of chefs and a group of farmers in a room and said, "Hey, listen, what do we need to do to become more local and more supply more local, eat more fresh, eat fresher, and more locally grown?" And we help farmers from everything from buying boxes to the transportation, to refrigeration, to food safety, everything. But listen, it's been tough. It's a tough market. I mean, part of it is because access to food is, we expect in America to have a cheap source of food. We spend 7% of our income on food. It is the lowest in the developed world. No one eats for 7%, but we do. So because of that, we import a lot of our food, and it's cheaper to grow and on massive farms with this economy of scale. So I remember one time we were buying we were paying our farmers. We always paid them not market. We paid them what they needed to make in order to be successful. We did not want them to sell us under their cost. And so I'll never forget that there was one summer, there was Mexican yellow and squash and zucchini squash in our market, $4 a case. And we were paying probably at that time maybe $16 a box. We continue to buy it. I can tell you that. I mean, we we do what we say we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But, that's a challenge. Now, since then, things are changing. You have the fuel prices, you have a more, educated consumer. You have a lot of young people like in this room and potentially listening. They're a lot more concerned about where the food comes from and less about the price. And so that's going to drive the continued, towards.
That's great. So we're here because as women, there are sometimes some unique challenges and opportunities that our gender has created or informed in being an entrepreneur. I mean, do you have any stories like overcoming that, maybe gender biases? I would love to know what that is for you. Either one of you can start.
Well, in the jewelry industry, it's mostly women, but in our direct sales industry overall, there's so many more men that are running companies. But I just, last 2 weeks ago, was a part of a direct sales women's owned CEO group, and we all get together once a year. And it's just been a really great way for us all to come together and work together. Even though some of us are in competing industries, we still love to share what works, what doesn't, and help grow our industry at the same time. So I don't see it as much for me, but at the same time, I do know it's out there, so I'm aware of that when it goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you have a unique situation. You and your husband work together as well as you life together. So
Right.
I always find that to be.
Yes, so we work pretty well together. We, he does the business side, I do the creative side, but when it comes time for our catalog time, which we do 2 catalogs a year, that's when we can butt heads a little bit, because I want something that I know will sell really well, but the price is too high, and he'll be like, no, that can't work, and I'm like, but I really want it. So that's the only time when we can, but because he just knows the cost of it.
Yeah.
So.
And we will, Jen brought catalogs with, so you guys will be able to see that here shortly. So how about you? What have been some overcoming opportunities for you?
Well, the produce industry, I will tell you, is the exact opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
There are virtually no women. There are virtually no women running. There are almost no president CEOs of any distribution companies. The few I've known, most of them have sold. So that overcoming it, I would say, where do we want to start? I mean, one of the reasons I left Pacific Corporate, and I will tell you, is that I looked up, we did not have a single woman on our board. We had no women officers except for one lady who was like head of accounting. I don't know that she was an officer. And so I understand and knew then that, hey, this is not going to be probably a place for me to get to the top, certainly. I mean, that wasn't exactly my goal. But listen, when you're at the top, that's where you can change and affect people's lives. And I didn't think that was it. And so, throughout produce, I will tell you, I belong to a group called ProAct. I was the first woman to ever sit on their executive board. The first woman to ever sit on the Harvest Sensation board. I mean, there's a lot of firsts for me in our industry. And it's not easy. I mean, I will tell you that, listen, I always used to say there was the board that they were all on and there was the board I was on. Because I got the knowledge that was public, but it was all the other knowledge that happened when they sat together at tables and whatever that I did not get. So it's tough, but what I think that I've tried to do is break down those barriers, and someone has to be the first. You're not going to probably be the most successful, but my guess is when they deal with the second woman coming behind me and the third and the fourth, things will change. Until eventually there's at least a 50%, or more of women and people of color, because listen, that's the communities that we all live in. But when we get to the higher we get, the less we see of boards and, the leading people, as I say, people in charge look like the communities they serve. It just goes down. It's not gonna be that way forever. It's changing. I was just early to the race, that's all.
All right, I'm gonna take a break from me. I want to start finding out what you guys want to know. What are some of your questions? Gotta have some, I know you do. Yeah, go ahead.
Always good to see another accounting major. So when it comes to your products, it seems kind of like you have two sides of the same coin, where your products are much more individualized, and your products are going to have a high turnover of a lot of the same products. So when it comes to like costing your inventories at the end of the year, do you find that comes out in like that consistent way where you might use more specific identification and you might use more like FIFO or weighted cost, things like that?
In our case, obviously we're taking a live inventory and it's based on real costs. So actual landed costs. And we do, for the most part, FIFO out everything, the way it comes in, obviously a fresh product, but we FIFO or FIFO. So sometimes things come in, they have expiration dates on them or best buy dates, which are viewed, oddly by society as expiration dates. I want to go on record, we're also the reason we have the largest food waste. We waste more food than any other country by far because we put random dates on things that have nothing to do with anything other than the perception. Listen, in produce, it's either good or it isn't. And it can go either way past that date because the product going in it was just so strong, grew under ideal conditions, never had a temperature change, and could be good 10 days after that or more, similar to dairy. Or it's bad 3 days after they bagged it. I mean, it's just, but yeah, that's basically, for us, everything is in real cost. But I will tell you, because our product pricing of those, like I told you, there's $88 lettuce out there today. A month from now will be 22. You really look at case movements more than you do sales to determine what you're really moving through what's the throughput through your organization.
Great question. Were there any questions online yet, Matt? Sorry, okay. What other questions? I had no appreciation for that. It's so helpful to know that. What else do you guys want to know?
I just have a question for Jen. Of your business, because for me right now, I feel like and I don't think it's productive. So at what point did you realize that you needed to dedicate some work to, whether it's marketing or, when did you realize in your business that it was time to kind of hand off,
That's a very good question, because in the beginning, you do need to pretty much be your own person to just get things off the ground. And then, so it was probably about a year in, my husband, we had a goal of 10 designers. We wanted 10 designers our first year, and we ended up having 30. So that first year, it was just myself, and our business was in our basement of our house too. So it was interesting because I'm sure our neighbors were wondering what in the world is happening in this house. People were coming in and out at all times. But it was time after that first year that we needed to have an office space. So in the beginning, it was in our house. Then we had an office space, which we moved into the Economic Development Center, which is fabulous for businesses starting out. And then my husband left his job. So then he was able to run the business side. But it did take about a year before we started doing that. And then after that, we hired our first employee to help with when customer or designers would come in to purchase their supplies. But we don't have that any longer. We don't have ladies coming into our office any longer. They have to do everything online. So it kind of went in stages, but you just have to make sure you're off to a really good start before you start adding people, because you don't want to get into a hole where you're like, oh, I wasn't ready for that. So you have to just make sure you're ready for it before you add more people.
So what are you doing? What is your enterprise? We'll
Well,
give you a plug.
Yeah, it's good.
I sell handmade products from Africa. So right now I've been working with Kenyan artisans. So they make the products and they ship directly to me and then I then sell them.
Well, what is your company's name? How
Oh,
can we find you?
The company name is Sydney Collection and
Is it Sydney? How do you,
Sydney is Seny and collection.
okay,
So I'm actually from Guinea and
Okay.
Sydney means gold and I just love my culture and
Oh,
I've
that's
been here
amazing.
since 2003. So I've learned so much as an individual. I've grown so much and I feel like it's time for me to kind of share my culture.
absolutely. So do you, I'm not gonna let go of you here. Do you have a website or do you sell through Instagram? Or that's like, how are people finding you?
So people find me on, pretty much on social media. So I am on Facebook,
Yep.
I'm on Instagram, and I'm currently working on the website, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing everything by myself.
bet.
So perhaps I'm in a stage where I need a virtual assistant just to do
Mm.
the little stuff so I can focus on other things. But I've been doing most of my sales on the Facebook Live, I schedule live shows, and then I let my customer know, and they invite friends, and then they join in at a live time, and then they purchase that way.
Well, if you advertise for a virtual assistant, we have amazing students who might be a great fit for you because if they work within flexibility, what are you gonna say, Jen? You gonna say something like this?
One thing I know in the boutique world right now that, the comment sold option on lives has been a huge,
What does that mean?
so you go on and you do a Facebook Live and you're showing your product, and then in the comments, they can comment, they say sold, then after they're off their live, you can go and DM them and then they purchase it and you send it to them.
Oh,
It's called comment sold, I believe is the.
okay, that's great to know. You started having your hand up. What did you want to
Yeah,
ask?
I was just gonna ask, like, when did you transition from just the creative side to like an actual business, and like, how did you do that transition?
That's a good question. So I still do create all the jewelry, but I no longer make it. So I will create it and design it, and then I have vendors that make it for me. So I've always kind of been in that role, but now I have more people that can implement it, which has been great. So I still do all of the designing, but then we have ladies that are I'm trying to think when I transitioned. I was verifying orders for a while before I finally got myself out of that part of it. Because once we were able to transition my husband and I out and our staff took over, it's amazing how much faster they do it and how they have great ideas that once we got out, we were shipping 7 to 10 business days. And when my husband and I got out and our product manager, she took over, we're now shipping someday the same day or by 2 days. So getting yourself out of it, but I still do all the creating even to this day. So that's.
What do you think you want to do? So you are a freshman and this is something of
Yes.
interest to you. So what are some of you probably have a bajillion ideas that go through your head, right?
Yeah, so ever since I was little, I've always owned a business, like pretty much every year, like
Yeah.
something. So I used to make and sell skirts. It was called Skirts That Are Sewing. And I went to art shows and like sold them and actually like bought myself a trip to go see some family down south. I'm from Michigan. And now I'm a big cyclist. I'm on the cycling team here at Lindenwood.
Oh,
And there's a big lack in the industry for women's cycling clothing.
Mhm.
And it's very much geared towards men. It's a men
I
predominant sport. So heart rate monitors, women have different chests than men. Bibs, like the padding in the shorts, jerseys, things like that. So
That's some sweet.
I love
yeah.
that. So I had a friend here that lives in St. Charles. Her name's Andrea Robertson. She was Mrs. America, and she started she does triathlons. And Tri-Flare, I think was her company. I'm not sure if she's still in business, but she was doing that for a while.
Look that up.
But yeah, Tri-Flare was the name.
There's a lot of just lack of like colors, like it's all black or
Yes.
it's all just like really boring. So yeah,
And that's where she came up with the Tri-Flare because she was kind of
yeah,
bright. with her
I love
colors.
it.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's so good. This will be fun to watch you. We'll say, we knew her when.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, were there any questions on there, Matt?
No.
Okay, how about the rest of you? What do you want to know? This is for your benefit. Yeah, hey.
Hi.
So are you a fashion minor? I won't take you for the.
Oh,
school, but.
Yeah,
So I'm working on it right now. So I just found out that I can graduate in 2 years. So I'm.
there's that.
Yes. I'm also very into nonprofit. So I want to,
Okay,
mixed
we'll
in.
fight over
Yeah.
you. What do you think makes you minor?
So yeah, so hopefully either 2 minors or maybe even add on a fashion major. I've been talking with my advisor about it.
Okay,
So
well,
Yeah.
she's your go-to.
Yes.
Absolutely. That is amazing. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I think this is for both of you guys. So when COVID hit, right, so we all had to look at how to change our business model. So we're coming out of COVID now, business is great, things are opening up. So what are your current now, how are you handling the supply chain challenges, the labor challenges, plus the market rate of inflation that's continuing to go up? So
Yeah.
for both of you guys.
Yeah,
So
do that.
we actually, we tried to stay ahead of it a little bit back when we knew it was going to happen. So we have jewelry boxes that we ended up getting a whole, what's it called, a crate or, what's a cart container? Yeah, a whole container. So we actually purchased way ahead for the next few years. We have it, and because of the space in our new office, we were able to have that space. So we just went ahead and purchased it ahead of time. We have had some issues. We were doing pretty well with back orders because we were trying to, things that were taking about 8 to 10 days once we would place our order, we're now taking about 2 to 3 weeks. So we tried to stay ahead of that. Some of our vendors did have more issues with COVID, so then their factory closed for a while. And so that was an issue for us. So we had to stay on top of it. We've had more back orders just recently because it's still an issue in some places in the world. So we're trying to still stay on top of it, but it is taking a little bit longer. And then we have tried to pad in that inflation cost into our cost for our next catalog, just in case. Because back in 2008, when our economy changed, that was very, very bad for us. In our first company, we had sterling silver beads, and sterling silver, when we purchased it, was like $4 an ounce. And in the middle of our catalog that year, it went to $55, I believe. So every time we were selling a piece of jewelry with those beads in it, we were losing money until we could get everything changed, the catalog changed, and then the company changed. So so we're kind of, we know what happened then, and we're trying for that not to happen now.
What for you?
Well, obviously we can't buy ahead.
Yeah.
So for us, most supply chains are like this, or at least in freshes. There's a lot of players between the national farm and all the way to the consumer. And for the most part, distributors, in terms of economic bargaining power, have very little. And so part of it is going out to both your customers, because your customers are larger than you are, and your suppliers are way larger. So you are just in the middle. And it's never a nice place to be. So you have to continue to tell your story to your customers who are bigger, so I mean, we've, as a matter of fact, we're getting ready to fly to Charlotte, North Carolina. So Compass USA is our largest customer. Compass would like us to make the least they could pay us, and they don't, and it's not, I mean, from a, it's not personal. I mean, listen, it's their business. Having said that, it's on us to go and tell our story, that this is becoming much more an industry of brain and less fun. We need to attract graduates like you all. And that's not easy if you can't pay them. You have to be, you have to be able to pay market wages. You have to have a presence today to attract, say, everything else other than, say, Compass. They're not going to find us on social media, but many restaurants will. And so, you have to have all of these different tools, like sort of buckets of talent inside your company. That's the equivalent of companies much, much larger. The fact that we are woman-owned, I think makes us a little bit different. We are unique, but we're also scarce, and there's a reason. And I would say one of the issues with being unique, and many women have a unique story. And you know what the one really hard problem about unique is? It is really hard to replicate. So one of the things that men do very, very well is, and it's just natural. It's just exactly, they just know how to do it. They know how to take another man from here to here to here to here. It's never, you never replicate everything. It's not unique. It's, for women, because you kind of blazed a trail often, it's hard to have someone follow. It's not necessarily can be done on the same track. And so we have to tell that story. And believe me, big companies today, they're listening to that story more than they ever were in the past. Before, they would have just tried to, tamp us down. But not so much anymore, because they have DEI departments, and they have DEI goals, and they have DEI initiatives, and a lot of it involves their suppliers. Well, if your suppliers are disappearing rapidly because, that are DEI because you won't pay them enough, that's a problem. So, what we've done since COVID, to really answer your question directly, is obviously we had to pivot during COVID. As I pointed out, we went B2C for the first time, well, all the way actually to the roots of the company. This company began as a retail location. So we pivoted, and once we kind of got past that, we dusted off our strategic plan. We relooked at it. We reinvigorated ourselves. To give ourselves a North Star. Where are we going? How do we get there? And what are the pieces that we're missing? How do we attract those pieces? How do we change our company? All of those sorts of things that you all are learning about. I mean, how do we become more nimble, more market reactive? How do we get there before our competitors, and how do we do it better than our competitors? And our competitors are mostly bigger companies. Today, post-COVID, most of the small distributors that were in the fresh space have been absorbed. We're really one of the last standing, last one standing. But we have a little bit bigger size. We had a brand new facility, which helped. It helped us get through COVID because we could do things. I mean, one of the things that we did during COVID, for 6 weeks, I think, or 7, we did all the Schnuck stores distribution because they had COVID outbreaks in their fresh warehouse. They had to completely tear it apart and sanitize it. This was pre when we didn't know whether it was on the railing or the jack handle or what it was on. And so we did all the distribution. I mean, it really had that not come along and a couple other things that we did. We probably would be here talking to you today for sure, or at least not in the same capacity.
What other questions do you guys have? What else do you want to know? Yeah.
Would you mind speaking to kind of the differences and difficulties between taking a startup and building it from zero and taking over a legacy company where maybe you had different goals that were set in a different environment?
Really good question.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Listen, I remember about 20 years ago, I went to Springfield, Illinois, to Bob Bunn's company. And I don't know if you all know the brand name, Bun-O-Matic. They had coffee makers basically everywhere. And they still do. I mean, that's still a viable company. But what they also had was a paper company and a food distribution company. And Bob was like the 5th generation. And I said to him, hey, Bob, do you go out in the warehouse much? Because, we toured their warehouse and it was crazy. It's like a maze. They added on to it. There's all these different things going on. And he goes, Joan, I really don't. It makes me nervous. And I said, what do you do, Bob? He goes, I sit in my office and I try not to crash the company. I mean, listen, every generation, there is a more intense pressure on you to not destroy value that's been created by the generation before you. And so it's why you see so much failure rate in the 2nd generation. And then by the 3rd generation, most of these companies are gone. Now, in my case, I don't know if this is fortunate or not, I didn't have children. And so there won't be a 3rd generation with the name Daleo, but what there will be is a 3rd generation. It has been my long goal to get my company, my employees. I'm spending the next 10 years. That's really all I focus on is how do I get it to them. I believe that we can solve a lot of the issues that you're facing people today as it relates to equity if people think of their businesses as not only their American dreams, but all the people who work for them American dreams. There's nothing like ownership. Ownership, either, home, we know home ownership is one of the biggest factors as it relates to people's overall wealth. I can tell you that business ownership is the same. There's risk with it, for sure. But running a legacy company is different. When I took it over in 2001, it was about, we had 3 trucks in a van. And today we run 19 trucks, we're in a 60,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility. We did a lot in those 20 years. But I'm sure it's very different than a startup, but honestly, the problems are the same.
So yes, having your own company is a little different as well, because if it doesn't do well, you're out and you need to go find something else. So there's stress and just challenges along the way. And since 2004, when we started this, we've definitely had periods where you're thinking, oh God, goodness, or do we need to start thinking of doing something else? Or you have challenges that come up and you need to change. You need to be flexible. You have to never give up. You'll have things happen along the way that you could get offended really easily, but I've had to harden my heart just a little bit to not get upset by those things and to keep pushing. And so my personality would crumble in that kind of situation, but not anymore, because now when those things happen, it just pushes me to work harder to make things better and to change and make sure that this is going to work. So we have 4 daughters, and I want them to know that their parents worked very, very hard to make this a success, and staying relevant too in the industry, like what you said earlier about Europe. In the jewelry industry, we follow what they're doing there because they're about 6 months to a year ahead of us. So in jewelry, you need to make sure you stay ahead of those trends to make sure that your jewelry is what people are wanting. And so that's the continued growth and the challenge. And in the jewelry industry too, different trends are in different states. So what happens in California, what they like, a lot of times North Carolina doesn't like. And so it's my challenge too, to make sure our catalog has things for everyone, to make sure that they continue to want what we have. And it's so interesting because when I first started the company, the things you would hear people say was like, oh, you're just starting your little hobby that you have. And until we moved into that building on Highway 94, people are now going, oh, that's really something. It's legit. And it's just so interesting, the perception people have, because we're the same as what we were in the EDC. We do have more people now, but it's that building. It's just so funny. It's so interesting. So we found out that 44,000 cars go by that building a day. And I'm amazed at how many people walk in every single day just wondering what it is. So maybe that building is going to be, but
do you use storefront sales then? I mean,
we don't,
yeah,
because we don't want to hurt our designers out there, but
yeah,
we
want to capitalize.
Yes, I know.
Let me correct you.
I know. It happens daily. It's just amazing how bold people are. I'm so surprised. But yeah, so this building has just been interesting to see now the perception people have of our company.
Maybe we'll just replace out front.
And that,
who is that?
It's exit 11, Angela Garland.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Don't drop into JBloom though, because.
You can come on and get a catalog.
Yeah, you're gonna get a catalog today.
Yes, right.
But you can get coffee and then you can go on. Okay, so when did you have a moment where you're like, I can't do this anymore? Obviously you didn't stop doing it, but is there any like a great takeaway? Because you're gonna be in that situation. I mean, no successful entrepreneur has gone through without some kind of overcoming something. So what was the time that you were like, okay, I don't think I can do this anymore?
Well, when we were building our building, There's a lot about building buildings that I could talk about, but again, they're unique. It's not a designer plan. It doesn't come from somewhere. So each one is done, each distribution center it's not like they built one down the road. Okay, so the one you're building is unique to your own company when you're in the fresh food industry and you're using the latest technology. Well, we thought it was gonna be X amount of dollars. The first thing we noticed is that we left off dry storage because in our old building, we didn't have dry storage. We were so tight, all we handled was fresh products. And in fact, at one time, we handled a little bit of dry storage. So dry storage would be anything like a pantry item. We just didn't handle that. We didn't have any pasta or anything like that or flowers. We didn't have space. So we had to go back to the bank and the SBA and get more money. Nobody does that. Once, we did it twice. Then we had to settle with our builder, so we had to do it a third time. So we had a gross maximum price building, and then it went way over, and we had to negotiate it down to a point where it wasn't, it was a gamble for the builder to sue us. We weren't building it, obviously they were, but that doesn't matter. They can still sue you. And so we went back 3 times. And 3 times we got more money, but of course, at the end of that, you're facing this giant amount of debt that your company, wasn't anticipating. And as you ran all your numbers based on this much debt, now there's that much. So we thought for sure that we had, bankrupted the company. But I will tell you that before we even started, I told my mom and dad, I'm going to tell you right in advance, I'm incredibly sorry because I'm probably going to bankrupt you. But I'm incredibly sorry in advance because I didn't mean to. And we lost our biggest customer like 2-3 months after we got into the building. So those were, those are, real check down times. But you keep going. I mean, you get up, you fall down 6 times, you get up 7. And that's what we did.
I agree, totally. The downside to being a direct sales company is we can't qualify for SBA. They will not do anything with direct sales companies, so that's a bummer. So we just were we got a very great relationship with our bank, and thank goodness they were able to work with us. And then when we were in the Economic Development Center, we did get some assistance with we personalized our jewelry with lasers, and we needed to purchase our first laser because in the beginning of You Design Jewelry, we were hand stamping all of our pieces, and so it was like you want happy on something, H-A, and when we were growing, doing that's a lot of time. So we needed to get this laser, but the laser was $75,000 for one. So we were able to get a loan through the Economic Development Center to purchase that first laser. And because of that happening, that opened the doors for so many more things. Another direct sales jewelry company closed, and we acquired about 500 of those girls that one day thought they had a company, the next day they didn't. And when we were able to, at the time, we were like, how are we going to pay for this laser? And then next week this happened. So it's crazy how you think you can't continue any longer. How is this going to happen? And then a bigger door opens when you think you're about finished. And that happened so many times with us that you think, I can't do this anymore. What can we do? And another door opens and another door opens. So that's happened many, many times. So I encourage you all, just never give up. If it's your goal to have a business, and just keep pushing because it will happen.
That's a question. Oh, go ahead. Nice.
So I'm curious. I came in a little late, sorry. So I don't know if I know you said that your husband's involved with the business, and I wasn't sure who your business partners are. That's my question. How do you make it work with these people? How does this affect your marriage? When the fact that you're working, it could be good, it could be that.
Right.
So, I'm just curious about if you had to choose, in choosing a business partner where you have choice, what are some of the issues that you see with regard to that, or in the situation of family? So I'm just kind of curious about what do you see has worked or not?
Well, I fired my sister about, like 20 years ago, but we're still okay. I mean, she just wasn't gonna do business, and so I fired her. I own the whole business though myself, but my husband does work there. And it can be very, it's an interesting, relationship, because we actually have to work together. He's on the buying side, and, from time to time, as I call, the different Joan comes out. That happens, because listen, I have to treat him like an employee there, so it's like a different hat. And, things that I might say at work probably wouldn't say at home. I mean, I try to be a little bit more positive at home. But, it's not ideal, I don't think, we're always together, we always work together. But I don't consider it the most ideal. Yeah.
Especially having a majority women-owned company, and my husband, we make sure that when we have to talk to our field, if it's something that we feel like he's better at communicating that, then he does that, or if I should go in and communicate that, because if he says that it could offend them, or that can happen too. So, the majority of the time we work very well together. We've been told we work very well together, but it is hard, because when I go home, when I leave the office, I can turn it off, and now I'm a mom at home. He sometimes cannot turn it off. And so that's the challenge, because I don't want to talk about business at home as much as he would like to. So that's the most challenge, but overall, we do pretty well together. He at one time wanted to work out with me, and I was like, no, we work together, we live together. I do not have to exercise and work out. So I will go with a friend. I need a break. But overall, it's fine.
Yeah, we're about out of time, so what are your send-off messages? You talked about not giving up. So for this primarily student group here, what would you suggest? What pearls of wisdom do you want them to get from you?
Well, I like to always leave with a couple things. I mean, one is dream big. I don't think I dreamt big enough, because I was shaped by the experiences I had. And they weren't, it wasn't quite as bright for women, back when I was going through school. So I didn't realize how high I might have been able to get if I had just dreamt bigger. But I also say worry about your track record. People later on, you're gonna need to maybe get your dream done. You're gonna need the SBA, you're gonna need a bank. And if, you have a whole bunch of late payments and missed credit cards and you're not gonna get that loan. So you don't realize something really insignificant may matter later, and it does. And so be careful about your track record. And beyond that, I mean, I think do what you love. I mean, make sure that what you do continues to fascinate you. I mean, I always think that I'm at my best, and the only thing I want to do every day is go to work. And even when I'm not there, I feel like I'm missing something. Something's going on, I need to know about it. And that's the type, and it's been like that for my entire life. And so, I knew I was in the right place even when I questioned it in the beginning. Looking back now, I see, oh, that was the plan all along.
I always encourage people to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and they know more than you. That's the key to everything that I've ever done, because I don't know everything. I do run this company, but there's plenty of room for growth. And there's plenty of room for me to surround myself with people that have a bigger company that I can learn from along the way. So just like I said earlier, I was with those women a couple weeks ago, and one of the companies, it's multi-million-dollar company, and she is just willing to share and invest into into other women. And so I just encourage you to build those relationships with people that you can really learn from along the way, because you can take little bits of wisdom that can help your company and to help you grow and to become very successful.
Well, and we'll make sure we get the catalogs out so we can give them a round of applause. Give them a warm Lindenwood. And plus, this is homecoming week.
I saw that.
Yes.
So my daughter Claire was a gymnast here at Lindenwood. So she actually drove here with me, and we were noticing it was homecoming. So
Yeah. We're gonna, so hopefully we'll see you all. We're gonna have tailgates, all that kind of fun stuff. They're trusting me to help judge the lip sync contest tonight. Which I'm all about. We used to call them air jams when I was in, it's been a few years. It's great to see. Thanks you guys for making time to be here today. Appreciate it.